It's time for Northwestern Outdoors Radio, the award-winning broadcast covering fishing, hunting, and outdoor recreation throughout the Great Northwest. Northwestern Outdoors is brought to you every week by Max Lure Company, producing a legacy of innovation since 1969, by Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter, and by Loophole, America's optical authority. Also sponsoring the show every week is Shiloh Inn & Suites, offering affordable excellence throughout the West. Mardon Resort, the place to fish and hunt in eastern Washington, and the Wallowa County Chamber of Commerce, where nature is on display in Northeast Oregon all year long. And now, let's head into the field with your host, John Cruz.
This weekend on the show, we're taking you to two very different places in the Northwest. Both of them, well, they're a little off the beaten path, but trust me, you'll be glad you made the journey to get there. We're going to start off in north central Oregon. We're going to be hiking and fishing our way along the John Day River at one of my favorite places to do both activities, Cottonwood Canyon State Park. While we're there, we're going to catch up with park manager Tom Peterson and ask him how things have been going at this huge park that offers all sorts of different recreational activities. It just opened 2 years ago, and it turns out there's been some other users he didn't expect that have been showing up there lately. We'll take you from the basalt cliffs lining Cottonwood Canyon to a huge field of black lava in eastern Idaho, about an hour and a half west of Idaho Falls. That's where you'll find the Craters of the Moon National Monument, and you simply must spend some time here to experience a landscape so foreign that the Apollo astronauts were brought here to get an idea of what the moon itself might look like. If you're looking for a place to stay while visiting the craters of the moon, you can actually camp there, or if you want to be a little more comfortable than sleeping on a bed of lava, you can head to Idaho Falls, which is also a great jumping off point to visit places like Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Park. That's what we did, and we stayed at the Shiloh Inn & Suites, which is located right on the Snake River. Rebecca Anderson, general manager of this big hotel, is going to tell you more about it. In addition to that, we've got some outdoor news for you involving livestock that may or may not have been killed by a wolf in northeast Oregon, as well as news about the sage grouse and why not listing it as an endangered species on a federal level may be a good thing for those grouse and a whole lot of other folks. You'll want to stick around for our upcoming events portion of the show and our trivia question of the week, sponsored by America's premier outfitter, Sportsman's Warehouse. If you correctly answer our trivia question, which won't be easy, you'll be entered for a chance to win the $25 gift card we give away every weekend from Sportsman's Warehouse. But before we drive any further down this dusty road, David Sparks has got another edition of Sportsman Spotlight for you. This week, David talks to Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife biologist and hunter Amy Spoon about a deer hunting expedition she won't forget anytime soon. Sportsman Spotlight is brought to you every week by the Northwest Ag Information Network and sponsored by Guide Nate Luther, the guide with the 12th Man Fan Seahawks boat catching salmon and steelhead this fall on the Snake River near Lewiston. Find out more about booking a trip with this great guide by going to his website at NateLuthersGuideservice.com.
Regular guest of the show and Washington State biologist Amy Spoon has an unusual deer hunt. David Sparks with Sportsman Spotlight.
Last year, a really cool experience happened with Brady and I in our deer season. We ended up getting 4 deer in 4 days in 2 different states. So that was a super fun deer season. It was kind of a whirlwind deer season that ended in 4 days, but they put more than 4 days into it, but it all pretty much went down in 4 days. So
when you say deer, we're talking muleys.
We're talking blacktail. Yeah, coastal, brushy, wet, rainy blacktail. Here on the West Coast, this is kind of a cool thing about Washington and Oregon. As you travel from the coast west, we have such a variation in climate and terrain that it allows for a species like the blacktail, which is their habitat is a lot different than the mule deer on the east side. But the blacktail are deer that it's one of those things, it's a love-hate relationship with hunting them. It's super cool. They're one of the hardest deer, I think, to get. They live in the brushiest, wettest climate, and just being able to see them is a task in itself. And if you're after a big record book blacktail, one of those really big, beautiful bucks, you're lucky even in your lifetime if you even get to see one of these really big, mature bucks. They're super nocturnal. There's a reason they get big, and there's a reason not everybody gets to see them, let alone shoot them. So it's just the habitat that they live in lends itself well for them to be able to hide. So if you're lucky to see one and shoot one, that's a pretty big accomplishment.
A double whammy.
Have you fished with Nate Luther before? He's the guide who's always catching fish out of his big boat painted in Seattle Seahawks blue and green. Nate grew up around Lewiston, Idaho. He has been fishing the Snake River and the Clearwater for as long as he can remember, and he wants to take you out on a trip where you can catch Chinook salmon to 25 pounds or steelhead up to 20 pounds. Here's how you do it. Go to his website, NateLuthersGuideservice.com. That's NateLuthersGuideservice.com, or give him a call at 208-503-9204. That's 208-503-9204 for an awesome Chinook salmon and steelhead catching adventure.
I'd like to tell you I just brought down that buck, but I didn't. I missed. And you know why I missed? Because of the scope I've got on my rifle. You see, my friends told me to get a Leupold rifle scope. Why? Well, because Leupold is America's optical authority. They make a huge variety of quality scopes for every need, and they make them right here in the Northwest. Unfortunately, I didn't listen. Now, I've got nothing to look forward to except a long, empty-handed walk back home. Next time I come out into the field, there's going to be a Leupold scope on my rifle.
Leupold rifle scopes. Check out the whole line at Leupold.com and look for them at a sporting goods store near you.
Back with Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We're broadcasting from Cottonwood Canyon State Park, a few miles north of Condon in north central Oregon, right along the banks of the John Day River. We've been having a great time here. It's the first time we visited in 2 years since the park opened, and the man we visited with is here again. Tom Peterson, park manager for the state park here. Tom, great to see you.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me back on the show.
So, Tom, 2 years ago, this park opened up, and it offers a lot to the outdoors recreation enthusiast. Why don't you give our listeners, if they didn't tune in 2 years ago, a little overview of what they're going to find here at this park?
All right. Well, this is kind of touted as Oregon's kind of wildest place as far as state parks go. We've got 8,000 acres, kind of dry country out here, where you really can kind of pick what you want to do. We got, kayaking or mountain biking, hiking, and there's also a few options for folks who like to fish, because we've got one of the best bass fisheries in probably the state, maybe the nation. They were introduced in 1970, and the numbers are just off the charts. So when you come fishing, you're going to get one.
Folks, the John Day River, if you haven't been up here before, you look at it and you think it's a trout stream, because it's a small little stream. It runs through this basalt rock canyon, and I actually got to hike a couple miles along one of your main trails, the Pinnacles Trail, today, and I was with my friend Ben Winkleman, and I'll tell you what, we fished 3 holes in a 2-mile stretch, and I think we caught about 40 bass this morning, and I'm sure we could have caught a whole lot more if we would have kept hiking more. Just a ton of fun on light gear. Nothing big in terms of the bass, but some good bass, and we actually had a couple guides come by, and they tell me certain times of year there's steelhead to be found in this section of the river too.
Yeah, absolutely correct, John. As soon as the irrigation stops at the front of October, the river rises and we get our first flush of steelhead. And they can run for several months, October, November, December, and a pretty good native run. Actually, the last native run in Oregon.
These bass, they're smallmouth bass, spunky fighters, and this fishery's good from basically April all the way through October?
Yeah, for sure. They start coming on, as you say, in April. Some say that the fish are bigger at that point in time, and then it just kind of cranks up as the heat cranks up. Bass just get way more active once the water gets into the 60s, and man, when you get a bass, you know it. They jump and they fight, and it's a good time.
Oh, it really is. And folks, even though most of the fish you're going to catch here are going to be, 6 to 10 inch bass, you will, on occasion, tangle into a good bass. I have caught bass out of the John Day that have weighed 4 pounds. So don't think it's just small ones you're going to find here. So we've got this great fishing. I guess something else I want to talk about is how much river frontage is here. This is a big park, like you said. And what's it got? 6 miles of river frontage? 10 miles? How much?
Actually, we've got 14, John. You can go up river 3 and downstream 11. And you can definitely find a hole, and usually there's not too many people in it.
Something else I want to talk about here is you have trails on either side of the park. And the one we took today, the Pinnacles Trail, is a hiking trail that goes a little over 4 miles, and it's also suitable for bicyclists too. Is that the one that actually goes 10 miles down? It's just undeveloped at a certain point?
Yeah, actually, it does go 11 miles. There is some private property in the middle, so it does run out at about 4.5 miles. But at that point, I mean, you've hit the Pinnacles, and you have hit some really great holes along the river, and it's a nice stretch with river views pretty much the whole way.
On the other side of the river, you have another trail, and that one's suitable for the horseback enthusiasts, isn't it?
Yeah, we often get folks with equine coming through. That, again, is about another 4.5 mile trail. It starts off at J.S. Burris Boat Landing and follows down river. And, it's a good spot to bring a horse and get a nice day ride in.
You're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We're talking to Tom Peterson, park manager at Cottonwood Canyon State Park. It's one of Oregon's newest state park. It's absolutely gorgeous right here in north central Oregon. Something else I want to talk about, something very unique for a state park, is the fact that you can actually hunt here. Tell our listeners about that.
Yeah, well, this has been a traditional hunting spot for locals for many, many years. The folks who knew the Murthas prior to us purchasing the property, and we did not want to stop that. So we have allowed hunting as soon as we got ownership of the land, and we just asked that folks, before they fire a weapon, be a mile upriver or a mile downriver. And we're open for big game, upland birds, and so we usually, get a pretty good crowd starting in October as far as deer season goes.
Well, we certainly saw lots of deer sign today, and something else we saw was ducks. I actually could imagine basically having kind of a cast and blast day where you're fishing for smallmouth bass in October, and if you got a shotgun with you, jump shooting some teal or some other ducks, and if you're in really good shape and you're a glutton for punishment, climb in the hills for some of those chucker that are cackling and chuckling at you.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing like chucker hunting. If you want to get some exercise, that's the thing to do. Maybe you can find a partner who will hike the hills and flush them down to you.
I've always been looking for that partner. I've yet to find that partner yet. Besides all of this, something else we need to talk about is, something that we were talking about before we went on the mic here. An unexpected user group has been showing up to this canyon, but in retrospect, I guess it all makes sense. Bird watchers, wildlife watchers have really gotten a lot out of this place, haven't they?
Yeah, that was an unexpected a group that we've gotten here. A lot of songbirds and raptors, and folks out with their binoculars spotting them and checking them off.
Well, it's really scenic country. I mean, just the views down the canyon itself are great. The basalt rock is wonderful. Lots of interesting plant life. And I got to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot here. We found these beautiful white flowering plants that are growing basically right out of the basalt rock, really late bloomers in September. Any idea what those are?
I believe that's gypsum weed, and it...
Such a beautiful invasive species, too.
Yeah, exactly. And they make this beautiful white trumpet. Right. If you get up early in the morning, that's usually when they bloom, and they are a magnificent-looking plant. You're right.
But one you probably don't want here at the park.
Not a lot, no.
All right, so we'll move on. Let's talk about some of the other wildlife you'll find here. Not necessarily for hunting. I understand there's some bighorn sheep that call this area home.
Oh, yeah. There's a herd of about 600 in this John Day River Canyon. And, we've spotted some just 2 days ago. They tend to be up on the ridge lines, and you have to have a good eye and be patient. But if you bring your binoculars and put some time in, I think there's a good chance of seeing one.
What's some of the other wildlife that you've seen here as park manager over the last couple of years that you think people might be interested in?
Of course, the bighorn sheep, like we just discussed. There's a lot of deer. I have spotted a few elk actually crossing the river, fording the river, and that was pretty spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
In addition, I always get a few coyote yips at night. Not every night, but it's a pretty authentic experience when you hear that down here in the canyon.
All right, so we've got some quality wildlife watching here, great fishing like we've talked about, chance to ride your horse, chance to cycle on your mountain bike, chance to hike about as far as you're going to want to hike along the John Day River. And when it's all said and done, you can go camping here. You got a nice campground too.
You bet. We've got 29 sites, 21 that are RV friendly, and boy, nice and big, lots of room to spread out, and pretty nice.
And on top of all this, you got a nice day use area, and there's actually a little history people can soak into because this is a former ranch. Tell our listeners about that as we wrap up.
You bet. So this was previously owned by the Murthas. They were a couple of consummate bachelors who owned and operated the place since 1966. So a lot of cattle. Prior to that, it was a sheep ranch in the early part of the century. And from what I understand, this was originally a horse ranch. And I think they were gathering horses for the cavalry for the Dalles.
Interesting stuff. Folks, you got to come out here. It's Cottonwood Canyon State Park. It's in north central Oregon. You got to check this place out. As you can hear, there's tons of stuff to do. Just go to the Oregon State Parks website for more information. Just Google Oregon State Parks. It'll be the first one on your list. You'll get right there when you type in Cottonwood Canyon State Park. Tom, great to visit with you, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be back again because the fishing's too good to pass up.
Excellent, John. Love to have you. Yeah, come get some of those bass.
The road is calling you to experience one of Oregon's 7 wonders, the Wallowas. So grab your camping equipment and fishing gear and head out to Northeast Oregon, where you'll find the views are endless, the air crisp and clean, and the water's cold and clear. Set up camp by the shores of Wallowa Lake or in the heart of the Wallowa-Whitman National Forest. Take your fishing gear and cast your bait into the deep waters of Wallowa Lake, or roll your fly into one of the eddies of the many freestone creeks and rivers teeming with fish. This summer, take the road that leads to wonders. It begins at WallowaCountyChamber.com.
Today's line of portable camp stoves from Camp Chef have come a long way from your father's propane stove, featuring matchless ignition, more cooking power, and in some cases a built-in grill or extra burner. Look for the complete line of Mountain Series stoves at your local sporting goods store or online at campchef.com. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
We're back with John Cruz on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
It's time for another Max Minute.
Fish on!
Brought to you every week by Max Lure Company. With us again is Lance Mers with Max Lure Company. Lance, a lot of people have been fishing the saltwater for salmon this summer and during the early fall. Some of them, though, have been frustrated, have not gotten the fish they want. Any suggestions for them?
Yeah, absolutely, John. We've got a lure called the Cha-Cha Salmon Squidder. And it comes in 4 different styles. It's a 4-inch squid body. It got 2 red hooks on it, a size 3/0 and a 4/0. They're all high UV glow, and you can use it with or without bait for the salmon or any bottom fish for that matter.
I see it's got the patented smile blade on for flash and attraction too. You know, there's something about that combination, that Mylar smile blade, the hoochie. I don't know what it is about a hoochie, but fish go wild about that, whether it's freshwater or saltwater. And I'm a big believer in the red hook theory. I didn't used to be until I was fishing side by side, same lure with red hooks. They work.
Absolutely. And the smile blade is 2.8 inches. So you're getting a lot of extra flash and attraction in the water with this setup.
All right. So if you're not catching the salmon that you want, either off the Oregon or Washington coast or in Puget Sound, give the Cha-Cha Salmon Squidder a try. You can find it at a sporting goods dealer near you or online at maxlure.com. Lance, always a pleasure.
Have a good one, John.
Have you fished with Nate Luther before? He's the guide who's always catching fish out of his big boat painted in Seattle Seahawks blue and green. Nate grew up around Lewiston, Idaho. He has been fishing the Snake River and the Clearwater for as long as he can remember, and he wants to take you out on a trip where you can catch Chinook salmon to 25 pounds or steelhead up to 20 pounds. Here's how you do it. Go to his website, NateLuthersGuideservice.com. That's NateLuthersGuideservice.com, or give him a call at 208-503-9204. That's 208-503-9204 for an awesome Chinook salmon and steelhead catching adventure.
It doesn't matter what sort of adventure you're after, whether it's big game deep in the backcountry, a day of fishing out on the water, or an overnight in the great outdoors. At Sportsman's Warehouse, we've got the gear in here for what you need out there. Gear up for your next adventure at one of the Sportsman's Warehouse stores or shop online. Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter.
Hey, we're talking to Lance Mers today with Max Lure Company about a brand new lure that's just slaying the trout out there on area lakes. It's the Smile Blade Spin Drift Trout Lure from Max Lure Company. Lance, what makes this lure so special?
Well, we've got our Max Lure patented Smile Blade, our high UV components, and the Spin Drift hook, which gives it a great corkscrew action in the water.
There you go, folks. All three components help you catch more fish. The Smile Blade Spin Drift Trout Lure, only from Max Lure Company.
From the Columbia River to Puget Sound, the Coastal Conservation Association in the Pacific Northwest works to conserve the fish we love and does so while protecting our heritage of sport fishing. To find out more, go to ccapnw.org. Again, that's ccapnw.org.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We are broadcasting from one of the most alien landscapes I have ever come across while putting together this show. It's the Craters of the Moon National Monument. It's located in eastern Idaho, not too far from the little town of Arco. With us here to tell us more about this really unique place is Sandra Gladish with the National Park Service. Sandra, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Sandra, volcanic landscape here, really fresh looking as well. I understand it's only 2,000 to 15,000 years old. Tell our listeners a little bit more about this national monument.
Sure. So this national monument was proclaimed in 1924 because it is a weird and scenic landscape peculiar to itself. So it's funny that you called it alien because originally it was thought to have looked just like the craters on the moon. So it's approximately 740,000 acres, about the size of Rhode Island and comparable to Yosemite. So it is 15 to 2,000-year-old lava basaltic terrain. And when you look out on the terrain, it looks like it could have happened yesterday. So we get a lot of questions if the volcano erupted just recently. The reason the lava looks so fresh is because it is a desert here. We don't get a lot of precipitation, about 18 inches per year, and the growing season is about 4 months.
So, folks, if you come out here, you're going to basically see this black volcanic lava field, but it's more complex than that. There's actually quite a bit of terrain here. There's hills that are not hills, they're cones. There's cinder cones and there's spatter cones. What are the difference between the two?
Oh, okay. So cinder cones are made up of ejecta called cinder. So it happens when a volcano or more of a fissure erupts. Because when you think of a volcano, you probably think of a nice triangle-shaped volcano, maybe before Mount St. Helens erupted. But here, it's a fissure eruption. So it was a very frothy mixture of gas and rock. And as it ejected into the air, it started to solidify and rain down as rocks. And so that builds up and creates cones called cinder cones. Spatter cones, which we have actually quite a wonderful display of spatters, is made when most of the gas has left the lava flow, and so it's mostly just blobs comparable to like a mud pot. It's very, very thick, and it just globs on everything it can as it starts to erupt. So the two look extremely different.
So you have these features, and folks, you can actually hike to the top of some of these cones as well here in the monument. There's actually a nice scenic drive. If you take your time, it takes you maybe about an hour to get through it, but stop along the way, go on some of these hikes. And one of the most popular hikes is not just a hike, it's an exploration into some of the lava tube caves you have here.
That's correct. We have 5 lava tube caves. 4 are all clustered in the same area called the Caves area. One is on the Broken Top Loop, and it's called Buffalo Cave. The largest cave we have here is Indian Tunnel. It's about 800 feet in length. It has 7 skylights, and it goes down about 40 feet underground, and there's a staircase leading down below.
We actually got the opportunity to go on a ranger-led hike through Indian Tunnel, and folks, generally speaking, when you go into a cave, you want 2 things if you're going to explore here. Number 1 is a flashlight, and number 2 is, some boots or sturdy shoes. You're definitely not going to want to try to do this in flip-flops because it's really rocky terrain. One other thing to talk about is some of the wildlife you're going to find in these caves and the importance of, well, making sure that they stay safe, and that would be bats.
That's correct. So we do ask that everyone, before they go into the cave, they get a cave permit. It's absolutely free. It's more of a screening process to prevent the spread of white nose syndrome, which has decimated the bat population on the East Coast and is spreading to the Midwest. So all that we ask is people come to the visitor center or the entrance station and make sure they're not wearing anything that's been in a cave or a mine east of the Rockies in the last 10 years or in Europe.
Most of you, not going to be a problem at all. If that does apply to you, just leave that stuff at home. Don't bring it into the caves. Again, we're broadcasting from the Craters of the Moon National Monument in eastern Idaho, and you're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. So we've talked a little bit about these caves, and one of them I got to explore after the Ranger-led hike was Beauty Cave, and that was really cool. And folks, you're definitely going to want flashlights for that one. It is dark, but it's this huge cave, and these lava tube caves, these were the funnels for the lava to flow, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So they're formed from a type of lava flow that is not quite as viscous as those that would make So it's a type of flow that would make pahoehoe, which is a ropey type of flow. You can think of it as it's a river of lava. And what happens is the top surface of it starts to solidify. And as it solidifies, just like in a river in the wintertime, the top part can become iced over, the bottom part's still flowing with water. Well, the same thing can happen. The surface of it will solidify, and underneath will be a conduit of lava. So actually, the North Crater flow, because of these lava tubes, it actually flowed out 18 miles, helped making all these channels of tubes.
Wow. Something else that's really cool about these caves is literally how cool they are. Year-round, as a matter of fact. I mean, here we are, the middle of the summer. It's 90-plus degrees outside. You go inside, and what? It's got to be in the low 40s, and I'm guessing that's a year-round basis?
Yeah, so it does depend on which cave you're looking at, how many openings they have, but yeah, they can stay pretty cool. Boy Scout Cave usually will have ice in it almost year-round. Typically this time of year, July and August, it starts to melt, but it stays very cold.
One other thing I want to talk about here is a little bit more about the wildlife. Now, we mentioned the bats. You've got, what are they, Townsend's bats, little brown bats? What are the bats that you have here in some of these caves?
Yeah, that's right. Townsend, big-eared bat, little brown bat, and several Myotis species.
And the amazing thing is, you've got these caves to explore, the 5 caves, but I understand you actually have like 400 caves here in this national monument. And, if you don't see the bats in the ones you're exploring, that's because they're in some of these other ones where people aren't going.
Yeah, that is also true. They typically avoid people, and so they're not typically in those more popular caves.
Another animal that calls this national monument home, and surprising me because you wouldn't think any animal would be here, is the pronghorn. This is actually right in the middle of a migration corridor, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. They go right through the monument, more towards the northern end. And a part of the monument we actually call Pronghorn Pass, because we have done studies, and it appears that at some point they actually go single file through the monument, and they have been doing this for thousands of years.
Absolutely amazing. Another thing that I also thought was amazing was another animal that lives here at the monument, the pika. Now, living near the Cascade Mountains, I'm used to going hiking, and you get higher into the alpine areas. You're going to hear the pikas and their sharp little peep. I didn't expect to hear or see any pikas here in a volcanic monument in eastern Idaho.
Yes, and I've heard that by many visitors, as they do not expect pika or the diversity of wildlife we have here. But pika, as you mentioned, they're typically found in areas that are cooler. Pika can't last outside with ambient temperatures of more than the lower 80 degrees. They find refuge in the lava tubes, in the cracks, and so they're able to stay cool by staying under there.
Fascinating stuff. So, folks, if you haven't figured it out, there's a lot to do here at the Craters of the Moon National Monument. You can explore the caves, you can go hiking up to some of the cool features, and there's also interpretive trails interspersed throughout the National Monument as well, or just go on the scenic drive and take it all in. And on top of that, you've got wildlife watching possibilities, and if you need a place to stay, well, again, you can stay in Arco, you can stay in Idaho Falls, kind of a commute though, or you can camp right here at the National Monument. Tell our listeners a little bit about the camping available.
You can camp right in amongst the lava. So surrounded by the basaltic lava flows, we have 51 sites, and we can accommodate larger RVs.
There are no hookups, though. It's important to know that.
That is true. It's self-contained.
So, whether you want to pitch a tent or you want to go ahead and bring the truck camper or the RV, there's a place for you here. And talk about a great weekend exploring all there is here at the Craters of the Moon National Monument. If people want to find out more, I guess we should steer them to a website so they can start planning their trip.
Yeah, please reach us at nps.gov/CRMO.
That's nps.gov/CRMO, nps.gov/CRMO for the Craters of the Moon National Monument. Sandra, thanks for telling us all about it on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Looking to leave the world behind? Then escape to Northeast Oregon's Alpine country, Wallowa County. With over 560 miles of trails and 60 high mountain lakes, the Eagle Cap Wilderness beckons you to explore. The deep glacial waters of Wallowa Lake call you to fish for record kokanee in the Hells Canyon, North America's deepest river canyon, lures you to experience the wild waters of Snake River. Wake up to the world of Wallowa County. Your morning begins at WallowaCountyChamber.com.
The off-season is a great season to visit Mardon Resort. Located in eastern Washington's Columbia Basin, you'll find incredible bird hunting, great wildlife watching opportunities, and fantastic fishing in a boat or right off the marina docks at Mardon Resort. Better still, off-season deals save you money when you bring your RV or stay in the hotel or wonderful park cottages. To find out more, log on to MardonResort.com. Mardon Resort, where the outdoor fun lasts all year long.
It's time again for news and reports from the field, brought to you every week by Mardon Resort at eastern Washington's Potholes Reservoir. Quail season open up this weekend, and duck season's opening up in a couple weeks, as is pheasant season, which means it is the perfect time for a Columbia Basin cast and blast vacation. Go ahead and hunt part of the day and then fish on Potholes Reservoir for walleye or bass, because this is prime time for all of the above. Find out more about making Mardon Resort your base camp for a cast and blast vacation this October by going to their website at mardonresort.com. That's mardonresort.com, where the fish bite, but we don't. We start off with bad news on the fishing front, at least as far as one fishing rod company goes, Feathersticks, a company owned by Bill Boyce that made quite a few inroads into the fishing world over the last 8 years, especially among steelhead anglers, is no more. In a final post on the Feathersticks website, Bill writes, "Unfortunately, due to a rise in manufacturing taxes and general costs of doing business, we will have to close our doors." The Western Washington-based fishing rod company, focusing on higher-end rods, was a staple at sportsman shows until this year, when tongues started wagging among industry insiders about their noticeable absence at events attended by just about every other regional rod maker. The rumors, unfortunately, turned out to be true, and it's a real shame. I own several Feathersticks rods, and they turned out a very nice product. I, for one, will miss them. Our next story, well, you can title it, "It's Not Always the Wolf's Fault." That's what several folks in Northeast Oregon found out on September 18th when they contacted authorities about a dead horse found on the upper Imnaha River. The locals suspected a wolf killed the animal, and for good reason. Wolves have killed their fair share of horses, mules, and cattle in this region. However, Steve Toole with the Wallowa County Chieftain reports that wasn't the case here. Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife biologist Mike Hansen said his investigation indicated wolves were not responsible for killing the elk, but instead, a bull elk was the culprit. Hansen said that his investigation showed the horse suffered a single puncture wound to the left groin, which he theorized had nicked a femoral artery, causing the horse to bleed to death. No predator tracks of any kind were found near the body or in the surrounding area. This led Hansen to say, "I think it was probably an elk. We found numerous elk tracks in the area, and the puncture is consistent with an elk horn wound. This is unusual, but not unheard of." Hansen related how in the past, a Rogue Valley rancher watched as a spike bull elk killed one of his heifers during feeding time, goring the heifer through the lungs and liver. The takeaways are this. Number one, don't get too close to a bull elk. And number two, this time, we shouldn't blame the big bad wolf. In conservation news, the sage grouse is not going to be listed under the Endangered Species Act, something applauded by both state government and conservation organizations. The long-awaited decision was announced on September 22nd by Sally Jewell, the head of the Department of Interior, who said, because of an unprecedented effort by dozens of partners across 11 western states, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has determined that the greater sage grouse does not require protection under the Endangered Species Act. The partnerships in this case included federal agencies like the BLM and Forest Service, state fish and wildlife agencies, a whole host of conservation organizations, and individual ranchers who have stepped up to conserve sagebrush habitat that benefits sage grouse and other species across the West. Because of these ongoing efforts, the Department of Interior was able to say that despite long-term population declines, sage grouse remain relatively abundant and well distributed across the species' 173 million acre range. Usually, you have conservation organizations screaming and kicking when a species is not listed as endangered. But in this case, organizations like the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, the Sage Grouse Initiative, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, the Mule Deer Foundation, the American Bird Conservancy, and Pheasants Forever all supported the decision to not list these big upland birds as an endangered species. So there you go. Sometimes everyone can play well together in the sandbox, and when they do, good things can happen.
We hope you've enjoyed our show. Our base camp actually has been at the Shiloh Inn and Suites in Idaho Falls, located right on the Snake River. With us here to tell us more about this great property is General Manager Rebecca Anderson. Rebecca, thanks and welcome to the show.
Thanks, John.
Rebecca, why don't you go ahead and give our listeners some of the highlights about your hotel here?
We have 161 suites. We do face the Snake River, which is a great location. We do have a convention center and a great restaurant. Our pool is 24 hours, which is very popular with the families. Our pool area also has a hot tub, sauna, steam room, fitness center, and we're one of the few hotels that are pet friendly.
Well, you know, the pet-friendly portion is a huge thing for me. We usually travel with our two dogs. We left them behind this time because we knew we were going to a national park, and national parks and dogs don't always get along well together, so keep that in mind. Before we actually move on, one kudo I've got to give to this hotel. The rooms are huge. You have really, really big rooms, and the views again of the Snake River right out the window are fantastic. So we've got that, and let's talk about some of the outdoor recreational activities right here in the Idaho Falls area. I'm guessing one of those things is that bike trail I'm seeing right outside my window.
Yeah, we're actually located right on the Idaho Falls Greenbelt, and I believe it's 2 miles around, and you kind of go by the actual Idaho Falls down the way. We are also one of the few hotels that have direct access to that trail right there.
I mean, it's not Niagara Falls or anything like that, but still, it's pretty cool to see any waterfall in the Snake River. Well worth the walk or the bike ride, however you want to do it from the hotel. What else do folks do around here?
One of the major things is fly fishing. We have some of the best fly fishing in the area. My husband goes every other weekend. They're mainly trout, cutthroat, and browns.
Well, you know, cutthroat and brown trout, everyone loves them. And as we were driving back, especially in the Swan Valley area along the Snake River, lots of folks fishing the river from drift boats, lots of folks fishing from shore, definitely attracting a lot of folks to the Snake River here for the fishing.
Yeah, the main rivers are the Henry's Fork, and also we have the South Fork. And like you said, the Palisades, which is where Swan Valley is. A lot of recreation up there where there's the reservoir. So people go boating, people go hiking, there's hunting up there. There's just a lot of different things around here. We do have the caldera, the Henry's Fork Caldera. It's also known as Island Park Caldera. Harriman State Park, if you have a chance to go, I do recommend it. It is gorgeous. There's a little bit of everything, especially all year round. Cross-country skiing is amazing up there. ATVing, snowmobiling, hiking, everything.
So the bottom line is this. The Shiloh Inn in Idaho Falls is a great base camp for outdoor recreation. Whether you're heading to Grand Teton National Park, whether you're heading up north towards Island Park and Harriman State Park, or if you're staying a little bit closer to the Idaho Falls area, maybe doing some fishing on the Snake River, maybe do some bicycling, maybe doing some hiking, maybe doing some walking. It's all right here for you at the Shiloh Inn. What's the website so people can go ahead and book their stay?
It is shilohins.com.
shilohins.com, really simple. Their tagline, affordable excellence. Check them out, and I think you'll agree. That's shilohins.com. Rebecca, thanks for telling us all about it on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mark Hemstreet, owner of Shiloh Inns. Shiloh is proud to be celebrating over 40 years of providing you, our valued Shiloh customers, with Shiloh's sincere friendliness, efficient customer service, and clean, comfortable, attractive, non-smoking rooms and suites, all at an affordable price. Shiloh also offers many free amenities like free Wi-Fi and free continental breakfast or hot, full, delicious breakfast at most Shiloh Inns, as well as pools, spas, steam, sauna rooms, exercise fitness facilities, and business centers. And even the kids stay free. And for you dog lovers, Shiloh is very dog friendly. So ask your best friend where he or she wants to stay. Next time you're traveling for business or pleasure, we think you'll get a paws up for Shiloh Inns. For reservations, call 1-800-222-2244 or visit our website at shilohins.com. Shiloh Inns, affordable excellence. American family owned and proud of it.
Leupold Gold Ring Optics are built to perform at the highest level, shot after shot, year after year. Our rifle scopes, binoculars, spotting scopes, rangefinders, and more always come through when you need them most. That's why our American-built products have a lifetime guarantee. Or as we like to say here at Leupold, they are guaranteed for a lifetime of performance, not a lifetime of replacement. Find out more about our top-quality gear and our lifetime guarantee at Leupold.com. Leupold, America's optics authority.
Ah, the great outdoors. I'm ready for a great weekend of camping at this remote campground. But first, I think I'll invite my camp neighbors over for a meal of fire-roasted hot dogs and baked beans. Dum-de-dum, dum-de-dum. Hi, neighbors. I just came over to...
Pizza!
Hey, is that pizza you're eating? How did you get pizza out in the middle of nowhere?
Pizza!
Thanks. Oh, this is delicious. A pizza oven operated on a propane canister and another on the top of your camp stove? And they're both made by Camp Chef? I knew Camp Chef made great stuff for outdoors cooking, but this? I've got to get one of these pizza ovens from Camp Chef. No more beans and weenies for this guy. From now on, it's artisan pizza for me when I'm camping.
Pizza!
The Camp Chef Pizza Oven. Bake your own artisan masterpiece on your back patio or at the campground. Find out more at your local sporting goods dealer or at campchef.com.
It doesn't matter what sort of adventure you're after. Whether it's big game deep in the backcountry, a day of fishing out on the water, or an overnight in the great outdoors. At Sportsman's Warehouse, we've got the gear in here for what you need out there. Gear up for your next adventure at one of the Sportsman's Warehouse stores or shop online. Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter.
We're back with one last cast from John Cruz on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Let's run through some upcoming events before we go. There are a lot of free classes and seminars available at your local Sportsman's Warehouse stores in the next couple of weeks. One of them I'd like to attend is a 4-hour salmon and steelhead seminar at the Lewiston store. It's going on today for you Saturday listeners and next Saturday the 10th as well. 2 experts will teach you the basics and a whole bunch more about catching these fish out of the Snake and Clearwater rivers. The seminar times are between 1 and 5 p.m. and again, the cost is free. Speaking of salmon and steelhead, fishing a jig under a bobber is a good way to catch these fish, but it's not as simple as it seems. If you want to find out how to do it right, head to the Puyallup Sportsman's Warehouse store on Thursday the 8th from 2 to 3 p.m., where a pro there is going to show you exactly what to do. Finally, at the Medford store on the 10th of October, it's a 2-for-1 seminar day. Things kick off at 1 p.m. with a handgun familiarization seminar where you can get an idea about what pistol might be right for you. Right after that at 2 p.m. is a basic GPS seminar that will help you maximize the way you use that electronic lifesaver. And now, it's time for your trivia question of the week. You won't find dinosaur remains here, but you will find plenty of mammalian fossils at this national monument located in the Pacific Northwest, along with some absolutely beautiful painted hills. What is the name of this place? If you know, give us your guess on our Facebook page at Northwestern Outdoors Radio. Like our page, not the post, like our page, and then give us your guess on the post we've got there for you. Or if you prefer, go to our website at northwesternoutdoors.com. Just go to our contact page and let us know. What's the name of this place where you'll find mammalian fossils and some beautiful painted hills that's a national monument here in the Northwest? Everyone who guesses correctly is entered for a chance to win the $25 gift card we give away every week from Sportsman's Warehouse. While you're on the web, be sure to check out RenoViolaOutdoors.com. It's one of my favorite websites because it's the home of WRVO Radio. This internet radio station brings you outdoors radio programming 7 days a week from all over North America. We are proud to be part of the lineup here, and I think you'll enjoy it. The website again, RenoViolaOutdoors.com, the home of WRVO Radio. That's all for this week. October is here, and that means it is prime time for fishing, hunting, hiking, wildlife watching, and more. So until next time, take care, God bless, and make it a point to spend some time outdoors.
If you've ever been fishing in Mexico, you know how good it can be, and now you can fish there with the Real News. Take your choice of a trip to Baja's East Cape for roosterfish, marlin, and dorado. These trips are value priced, so you can stretch your dollars in fun. To find out more about fishing Mexico with the Real News, log on to therealnews.com or call 425-334-8966. Again, that's therealnews.com or 425-334-8966. For an incredible adventure.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, a nationwide group working to keep public lands in public hands. We've helped ban the use of drones for hunting. We help repair wildlife corridors in key riparian areas. We speak up against illegal ATV use. We collaborate with elected leaders to keep public lands in public hands. We're Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, with membership in all 50 states and Canada. Please join this dynamic conservation group. Check us out at backcountryhunters.org.